Now Nifty opened 0.15% higher at 19,783 levels. Meanwhile, 30 share Sensex was up 0.15% at 66,625 levels. Now mid cap and the small cap index, Shweta, has been outperforming the headliners, and as you can see, small cap index is up about 7.6% at 11,792 levels, and the mid cap index is up about 0.33% at 37,845 levels.
Okay, which are the top gainers and losers this morning?
So Shweta, among sectoral indices, all major sectors were, if you can pull up the graphic of sectoral indices, all major sectors, Shweta, were trading in the green, except Realty. Nifty Realty was now down about 1% in the morning trade. Now Nifty IT was the top gainer in today's session. It was up about 0.73%, followed by Nifty Auto, which was up about 0.5%. Now among top gainers, as you can see, Shweta, NTPC continues to be among the top gainers. It was up 2.13% today, followed by Hindalco, which was up 1.28% today. Tech Mahindra, which another positive day for Tech Mahindra, it is up 1%, followed by Dr. Reddy's and Tata Motors, which is also up nearly 1% ahead of the July auto sales numbers.
Okay, what's driving the NTPC stock? What is the trigger?
Shweta, the numbers were largely ahead of the estimates. The numbers came out on Saturday, and the stock has been on a 15-year high. So NTPC has been rallying, and it has given good returns for the investors in the last few sessions and in the last couple of months. Okay, and Tech Mahindra stock, they're also positively surprising. Most IT stocks are trading in the positive territory, Shweta. IT sector is a top gainer in today's morning trade. It's up about 0.73%.
All right, and let's quickly also look at the top losers this morning. Do we have we don't have top losers, but
so Shweta, I have the numbers.
Okay.
Power Grid Corporation is the top loser, was the top loser in morning trade today. It was down about 4.28%, followed by Apollo Hospitals, which was down 1.4%, UPL, which fell about 1%, and ONGC, which was down about 0.93%.
And Power Grid Corporation did not come up with very good results.
Power Grid Corporation disappointed streets by a long shot. Actually, it was down about 5.28% today, and another day of sell-off we are seeing, it is down about 4% today, Shweta.
All right, and another interesting story that we are tracking since yesterday is Maruti's earnings, somewhere in line with estimates.
Maruti Suzuki numbers were mostly in line with the street's estimates. Now, as you can see, the profit figure was jumped 145%, more than 2x jump in profit from 1,012 crore to 2,485 crore. Now, the margin also expanded by almost 200 basis point from 9.2% from 7.2%. Now this is mostly the margin contraction was the margin did not really increase as much because of the new advertisement, because of the new launches, and so the company was spending on advertisement and that's why we didn't see margin picking up as much as a net profit figure jumped up.
All right, and Amit Gupta from Fintech Capital is with us this morning. Good morning, Amit. Good morning. We can see you there now. I want to quickly begin by asking, what is the impact on Maruti stock that we are looking as a result of the quarter first results that came out yesterday? Profit jumped as much as 145%, but I think the stock is down this morning.
Yeah, hi Shweta and Suesh. So I haven't been tracking the exact price action on the Maruti stock, but I did see the result yesterday. I think the company has benefited a lot from the slump in commodity prices over the last 1 year, and that's reflected in the higher margins for the company as well. The recent the pipeline of Maruti models have been good. But we are heading into a soft period because of Shraddh and all that. But I expect it to pick it up again when the festive season starts from early October.
All right, and in fact, auto numbers are likely to be out today, and that could also sort of indicate where auto stocks will be headed this afternoon, Suyash.
Yes, Shweta. So at least from what we are looking at, the expectations coming out from brokerages, that we can see recovery in the domestic two-wheeler segment, and it is expected to grow from 8 to 10% year on year. Meanwhile, the passenger vehicle segment will see about a 5% improvement on a year on year basis, with a gradual recovery in the urban market and also in the rural areas. Now, MHCV, the medium, high and heavy commercial vehicles will see about a 5 to 7% improvement. Other than that, we are also looking for the PMI numbers, which will be released later in the day. And also one of the important things that's going on is FIIs. Now they have turned net sellers in the last few sessions. They pumped, since April, they pumped about $18 billion. And in the last few sessions, they have turned net sellers. So Amit, what's the reason? What's spooking the foreign institutional investors?
Swish, can you just repeat the question? I lost somewhere in between.
Yes, for sure. So, Amit, foreign institutional investors have turned net sellers in the last 3 or 4 sessions. Now, they had been net buyers for the last 5 months or so. So, why are we seeing selling from the foreign institutional investors at this point?
Yeah, I think, we had a good run at all benchmark indices. Nifty has moved up about 18% from March lows. Small cap index is almost up 28% from the March lows. So I think it's a little bit of a profit-taking kind of a scenario, given that almost all the heavyweights results are out. Heavyweights in the Nifty especially results are out. And I think we are seeing some sort of a profit booking or portfolio adjustments in the market currently. Whenever there is a dip, the DIs and the mutual funds are strong buyers into the dip. So I don't see it as sort of a permanent kind of a trend. This is more like a short-term trend where some profit booking is taking and the portfolio adjustments are happening.
All right, and other important stocks that we are tracking this morning for whom results will be out today is Adani Total Gas, PVR Inox. If you could quickly run us through what are the expectations as far as Adani Total Gas is concerned.
Adani Total Gas, I don't track the stock as such.
Okay.
As far as PVR Inox is concerned, we do have it in our portfolio coverage. We don't have a rating on it currently. But I think PVR in general had a soft quarter last quarter, the April to June quarters. A couple of big releases was not went down as expected. Even though this month has been started very well with the Barbie, Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, and now the latest Bollywood release as well has done well in terms of numbers. But I think last quarter was quite soft. So I think the market has already priced in that to a certain extent. My sense is market would be looking forward to further release into the festive season.
All right.
Items.
Okay, before we move on, Suyash, what other trends are we tracking and what other stocks are we tracking this morning?
So Shweta, again, the focus will be on the Q1 earnings, and as we know, PVR, Inox, Welspun Enterprises are among the companies that we are tracking the earnings of. And again, Adani Total Gas, after Adani Green and Adani Transmission, another company from the Adani stable is due to give its results. So we can see a lot of stock specific action going forward, and also the auto sales number and the FII flow and the PMI numbers will be tracked by the market participants.
All right, those of course will be the trends that we'll be tracking this morning. Amit, Suyash, thanks very much for joining with your inputs on that very crucial story. We're going to shift focus for now. Another story that we continue to track, and that is by the way of record number of taxpayers who filed their ITRs as of, in fact, this morning. We're given to understand, in fact, if Amit continues to be with us, let's quickly understand from Amit where the numbers are. 6.5 crore taxpayers so far, and that is a considerable high number given that it was 5.8 crore taxpayers as of last year. Is Amit with us? Amit is not with us, but Karthik is with us. Good morning.
Those numbers, of course, 6.5 crore taxpayers. I think that is a huge
something
number.
To cheer about.
And something to cheer. So congratulations to you, to me. Congratulations to India. I think 6.5 crores is a great markup over what we saw last year at 5.8 crore. And these are taxes that were filed actually till 6 p.m. yesterday. So till 6 p.m. the data tweeted out by the income tax department suggested 6.5 crore Indians had filed taxes. Now Of course, the filing option was open till midnight, so we would have seen, I'm sure, much more numbers, a couple of more lakhs definitely added. That data is yet to come out, but yeah, I think overall it's a big number to rejoice. I think what is also interesting, Shweta, to point out here is the efficiency and the agility with which the Income Tax Department is processing and verifying the income tax returns this year. So, data available till the 27th of July, which was 4 days before the last date of filing income taxes of 31st July was arrived at, the Income Tax Department had verified almost 90%, 88% of all the taxes filed. Now, add to that another 50%. So, 50% of the total refunds or processing of the income tax data was already done, which means either refunds or additional tax due or a nil balance. The processing of data was done for up to 50% of the cases. And I think that is something which is fairly efficient and agile.
Okay. I am still bothered by that number. 140 crore people in this country, 6.5 crore people filing income tax returns. Are the rest of them not earning? What's happening here?
So, I think, Shweta, see, to be fair, I think let's divide this 1.4 crore population at least by 4.
140.
The average, the 140 crore, at least by 4, right? That becomes the average family size still in India, right? And I don't know whether this would be an accurate average to take or not, because many people still continue to live in joint families where there are parents or grandparents over the age of 80, I think is the exemption. Over 80, you don't need to file your income taxes. So, well, maybe I'm not sure if 4 would be the right denominator. Maybe we should divide by 5 as a better average. And that brings us down to a number of about 35 or 36 odd crore Indians. Out of those 36 crore Indians, only 6.5 crore Indians have paid taxes. So, that is almost a sixth of our assumption of the total number of bread earners in the country, at least paying taxes, right? So, the number is definitely worrying. But unfortunately, India also has many exemptions in the form of, let's say, the entire agriculture community. So, even if we were to assume modestly that 30% of the country is still agriculture driven, so from that 36 odd crores, knock off another 1/3.
Okay.
So, that brings it down to another 24 odd crores. So, overall, yeah, I think, we could still very well build a case that no more than 25% of Indians who are due to file their income tax returns are still filing their income tax returns. But is government data going to sort of corroborate that? When we tally it with PAN cards, with bank accounts, are we going to be able to arrive at that 25% figure or not? I don't know. But given the tools and technology with which the government is operating and going after tax evaders, I think we should be able to see this year, I'm confident and hopeful that we should be able to see the government going after tax evaders, in quite a robust manner.
Absolutely.
Not something that we have seen right now. I think the process that the Income Tax Department used to follow, at least till last year, was a random selection of potential tax evaders. So, let's say, out of this entire pool, you will randomly pick up 100, and out of those 100, you may find 20, 25 with discrepancies. And then you sort of, you use that to extrapolate the data to a population scale. I think now, given artificial intelligence, given the linkages between banks and Aadhaar and PAN accounts and records with the government, a better, smarter, more efficient, more accurate reconciliation should be done.
Okay.
And we should arrive at a more scientific number of how many Indians are actually liable to pay taxes, and then a ratio of the 6.5 or upwards, we're still counting, or upwards of Indians who have indeed filed taxes.
All right. And in fact, it's interesting, important to point out the number of taxpayers are increasing. The number was about 5.8 crore people. It is 6.5 crore. It's a very small increase, but again, something to cheer here. It's interesting to point out that it will be becoming more and more difficult for a person to fall through the net, the tax net, because government is getting more innovative in figuring out where you are evading taxes by what means. So your purchases, your high-end, high-value purchases would be government would be going through them. Your bank statements, perhaps, where you've either been a part of an industry which was untapped so far, so luxury items, etc. All of that is now in government's radar, and this is a story we've been, tracking here for a while as to how it is going to become increasingly difficult for you to hide your expenses and therefore also hide your income. So innovative ways there that the government is going to come up with, and in fact is coming up with framework on how to figure out and get hold of people who are continuing to evade taxes.
And I think one more addition to that, Shweta, would be, you may have a threshold of no taxes till, let's say, 5 lakh rupees of income. Now, this includes a significant chunk of the population which should still be empowered to at least file zero returns, right? I think a lot of people that we would be employing, let's say, as domestic help, or drivers, or people from a lower strata of society who are drawing income, and that income is either in cash or even a UPI transfer or a bank account transfer. These people continue to own the Aadhaar card, have a PAN number, have bank accounts, would be eligible in our calculation of people we feel eligible to be in the tax net as a division of the 140 crore population that we have in the country. But I don't think even the saral filing of taxes makes it easy, or they feel they are incumbent to declare that income. I think a lot of transactions are happening, across the streets today.
Absolutely.
At hawkers, at other people who are digitized, who have these QR codes that you scan and pay. Money is going into their bank accounts. Many of them, I suspect, would be drawing in a gross salary, if not net, at least a gross income at a business level or an individual level of over, let's say, 30,000-40,000 rupees a month. I think their receipts would be much higher than that.
I agree, 7%.
But lack of knowledge, understanding, ease of filing taxes, no strict enforcement of by way of communication that yes, even if you have an income under 5 lakh rupees, you are still incumbent to file a zero return. I think once that communication is through and once that enforcement happens, we will see this number of 6.5 crore triple very easily, if not more.
Correct me if I'm wrong, the concern here is with largely unorganized sector, people who do not essentially believe that they are a part of the formal employment structure and therefore don't feel the need to file taxes.
And yet they are banked, yet they are digitized, yet they have a PAN account, yet they have an Aadhaar number. So overall,
so there is a footprint here,
there
a
is
digital
a footprint. There's a complete digital and financial footprint here, except that it's not considered, like you said, formal economy, and hence, and I think education levels also don't coax them or coerce them to go ahead and file. And of course, the whole income tax portal being digitized, many people still dependent on chartered accountants to file taxes. I think these frictions need to be eased significantly, wherein, it should be made as simple as, hey, this is your total income as per records of your bank statements. And if you are in agreement with this, and translate it in multiple languages. Click this button to say yes, click this button to say no and report inaccuracies. I think just that clicking of yes and an automated income tax filing should also do the job. But of course, it opens up another Pandora's box of cyber frauds and this and that. But yeah, I think overall we have to address this rural economy, informal economy being included in the formal number of taxpayers.
Absolutely, and I'm sure, I think that would be next in radar for government to ensure more people who usually fall through the income tax net do not do so in near future. Perhaps some measures there would be prudent, but a number that we can all look on our screens at this point in time, 6.5 crore taxpayers, is good for government, augurs well. Shifting focus to another interesting story that we're tracking, and that is by the way of GST.
The diametric opposite of what we saw with income tax. The number of income tax payers is increasing, and the number of GST frauds is increasing.
So before we go to e-gaming, let's quickly understand what's happening with GST. Government has a problem, and that problem is by the way of GST evasion. Companies, businesses are finding innovative ways again to evade GST, and that has resulted in GST Council, authorities cracking the whip on how to ensure that people continue to file GST as they are liable to.
Right. So, I'll request Anu to move on maybe to the graphics that we have on the data that FM presented in Parliament yesterday, right, on GST evasion. And let's take it from there. Now, incidentally, there are two things that have happened. One, of course, is the set of data that the Finance Minister presented in Parliament yesterday, and this was data pertaining again to GST frauds of the last 2 months, which was between the month of April and May of this financial year. And in addition to that, so these graphics are here. Let's just maybe move on to the graphics on which we have the FM actually making that disclosure, and then let's come to the ones that Amit Mitra, former Chief Minister of the state of West Bengal, has alluded to. Former Finance Minister. So, I think this is what Amit Mitra has written to the Finance Minister, and is saying that I write this letter with great anguish and deep concern. He's talking specifically about.
Let's move to BG as well, please. We are not talking about e-gaming, so perhaps let's move on to the next BG where we are talking about GST frauds. Yes. So
Amit Mitra has written to the government, and Amit Mitra has written to the Finance Minister to call for a special GST Council meet to tackle two primary issues. One issue being the rising cases of GST frauds, and this number runs into trillions of rupees, right? So, almost 1.5 trillion rupees or 1.5 lakh crore rupees of GST invasion between 2020, 2021 and 2023 up until the month of May. So, this is issue number one. Issue number two happens to be by way of this constant revision and tinkering of GST rates. So, as many as 400 goods and about 100 services have seen revision of rates as far as GST goes. So, enough and more data available. At one point, the government has accepted that there have been GST evasions to the tune of about 14,000 crore rupees in the first 2 months of this financial year. I'm talking about the month of April and May. And this is the figure stated by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Parliament yesterday. 14,000 crore rupees of GST evasion has happened on account of some 2,800 odd tax evaders. Right, there we have the numbers now. So, 2,784 cases of GST evasion, and these amount to about 14,300 crore rupees worth of frauds. Now, another 5,700 crores of frauds have actually been recovered. So, this is the amount that the government has actually been able to recover from preceding months. Overall, this data corroborates with what Amit Mitra was mentioning, about 20,000 crore rupees or so. Right, let's move on to the next graphic and see what else we've got. So, the data presented by Finance Minister yesterday in Parliament says that there has been GST evasion of 2.68 lakh crore rupees across 43.5 thousand cases between 2020 and this financial year up until now. It's not an estimate till 24, it is actually real data till May 2023. So, present FY24, out of which there has been a recovery of about 76,000 crore rupees.
So, not even half the money.
Not even half the money. In fact, just about 1/3 of the money has actually been recovered. Now, basis this, let's see what Amit Mitra has written to Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in his letter. And if we can move on to that graphics of Dr. Amit Mitra. So, presently, he's of course Principal Chief Advisor to the Chief Minister of West Bengal, Mamata Banerjee, and he's written that I write this letter with great anguish and deep concern. Move on, please. On the one hand, GST frauds are proliferating across the country and they are penetrating each and every state. And on the other hand, the web of regulations is so overpowering for MSMEs that they actually are right now on the verge of deregistering and going back to their informal status. So, there are two very critical things that Amit Mitra is talking about here, Shweta. One, of course, is the GST tax evasion, and that number is huge. And the second is informal sector wanting to, which had formalized by way of GST registrations, now finding the whole regulation so complex that they want to go back to being in the informal sector, and they are saying, we'll possibly deregister ourselves from GST. He also goes on to state that 90% of the GST collection is actually happening only from large corporations, not from the MSMEs. And the compliance burden is so high that MSMEs who are registered with GST are pretty much falling through those cracks. And hence he's calling for a special meeting of the GST Council to address these two specific challenges.
Okay. And these challenges, of course, continue to go on unabated. Amit Mitra, in a letter there, as you can see on your screen's graphics, where he talks about GST evasion detected in the last 2 months and overall in a period which is as long as 3 to 4 years.
Almost 4 years.
Almost 4 years period. We will, of course, track that story. But GST Council expected to also meet today, perhaps ratify
Tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Wednesday, which is tomorrow. We'll meet tomorrow on another interesting story that we're tracking coming in from GST Council, and that is the levy on e-gaming companies. The 28% levy is expected to continue. All people who have spoken so far and spoken, I'm given to understand off the record book, because you couldn't really find names as to who's saying what, but the all-powerful body of finance ministers of all states in this country are saying that e-gaming companies will have to pay 28%. A very interesting quote that I read this morning and which made a lot of sense to me is that every time you talk about putting a levy on earnings, are you expecting a tax inspector to stand up at a casino table and calculate those earnings? So it's going to be a tough job, essentially alluding to the fact that we have to take it upfront, because if we are to take it on the money that you earn, it's a very difficult job and we can't do that.
So, Shweta, while I believe that the government is in its place right to levy a high sin tax of 28% on casinos, on horse racing, on e-gaming, and I'm also okay with the government, not really making a clear-cut demarcation between games of skill and games of chance.
Yes.
I just feel that a complete GST on face value is going to make a major dent on the industry, and there are 5 questions that I think the GST Council should explore, and let's stay on those 5 questions. The first one should be that, are we going to continue seeing the whole 28% on GST? Are we going to see the entire 28% of GST on the face value, I beg your pardon, and not specifically on the earnings? Now, the government is saying that we can't go and calculate the earnings on every table, but you're starting from a position of mistrust. You're saying that the financial reporting of casinos or online gaming companies or horse racing companies is actually going to be a cheated, fraudulent, incorrect account.
Okay.
Right. So you're starting from a position of mistrust. So the first question is that GST on face value 28%, should it be face value, should it be earnings?
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the government is going to stick to face value and not talk about earnings, because the logic it's going to give you is that you go and watch a movie, I'm charging you GST on the full face value of the ticket and not on what PVR Inox is earning. Right. So that logic is fine. But second question that arises to my mind is,
can I just quickly, let's also pull up those graphics on those questions. It makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, if you look at the logic of it, how much you're earning is up to you to declare, not the casino to declare, and as a result of which it becomes increasingly difficult for tax authority to calculate how much you've earned.
right,
Unless there is a documentation of how much you've earned.
Shweta, that is the difference between GST, goods and services tax, and corporate tax. So the point very simply is that, what the gaming industry is asking for, that you charge us on the platform fee. That platform fee is nothing but the profit of the gaming companies. And the profit after tax, corporate tax of 25% is the direct tax that companies are in any case due to pay. So the point really being that the demand from the industry is also unfair. GST by definition is face value. GST is not on profitability,
Absolutely.
right? And platform fee is nothing but profit. So I think on point number 1, will GST stay on face value? I believe the answer will be yes, but we'll have to find out tomorrow. On the second point, that now this is an area of concern. Will gaming companies actually have to pay the tax retrospectively? Which means that up until now, they've been paying 18%, not 28%, 18% GST, not on face value, but on platform fee. Now that this clarification has come, and government is not calling it a change, they're calling it a clarification. Now that this clarification is going to come, is it going to be applicable retrospectively? If that happens, a lot of gaming companies are going to go bust. Let's move on to the next point. There are 5 questions that I think the GST Council needs to ask. The next one being that now what happens to foreign companies will they have to come and register for GST in India? Some statements, some reports are also suggesting that they may have to look at agents in India. If they are not Indian registered companies, they can't apply for GST directly. They may have to look at agents in India who charge on their behalf, and hence the agents become liable to pay this 28% of GST.
Which is why they are also luring gamers.
Exactly. So now the point is, if that happens, there is no difference for Indian gamers. But if foreign companies decide not to do that, why would they come and pay taxes in India? How will the government of India stop Indian gamers from jumping ship to those global platforms who are actually going to continue to operate globally without setting up shop legally in India and registering for GST in India? And that brings me to the last and final fifth question. This industry, the online gaming industry alone, had revenues of $10 billion last year. $10 billion for a new industry, nascent industry, is not bad. Revenue, not valuation. Very good. Revenue. Okay. $10 billion, what happens to this sector? Absolutely. These are critical questions that the GST Council must ask itself and answer tomorrow, so that it arrives at a policy which tries to at least achieve a win-win situation.
Absolutely. Whether it's going to be a win-win situation or not, we'll have to of course wait and watch out for that, because the council ratification will come tomorrow. The meeting is expected to be tomorrow, and e-gaming companies are unlikely to get any sort of relief, which so far, as per messaging that is coming out from the government, is very, very clear. Not getting any relief, 28% stays. It's a sin, and interestingly, we keep using the word sin tax. Also important to understand what is a sin tax. Sin tax or sin goods or sin service is essentially not an essential service. I mean, you can relate it to a religious connotation, but in government's parlance, in more practical parlance, it is something that is considered to be sin over and above your daily living and managing of living expenses. So casinos there, of course, continues to attract a sin tax, as you may call it, GST of 28%. But we're going to shift focus for now, and another important story we're tracking. I'll request my colleague Amit to also join us for this story, and that is by the way of smuggling that Customs Department has been able to get a hold on. Amit, please, what numbers do we have? Interesting figures that the Customs Department is reporting at this point in time. And the Finance Minister, of course, spoke about these numbers in Lok Sabha.
Customs Department, it seems, is on an overdrive doing its job. So 42,754 cases detected in the last 4 years, amounting to 46,000 crores of rupees. This is over and above the GST cases that you people just spoke about. Of these, goods smuggling, there are 2,986 cases. Commercial fraud, 12,259 cases. So if I was a fiction novel writer, I would say the plot thickens.
Okay, all right.
Come join us, Amit. I think it's an interesting discussion that, we at one level are, of course, celebrating the tax collection, direct tax collection. We celebrate month on month, and it's become a norm now, 1.5 lakh crore rupees GST collection every month. And at the same time, we find ourselves in this peculiar situation where we are talking about GST evasion at one end. We are talking about, e-gaming companies not wanting to pay 28% sin tax GST, and then a more formal approach towards a hopeful evasion of that fairly high 28% tax, in addition to a corporate tax that companies pay of 25%. We are talking about a large middle class which is taking this whole burden of economic growth squarely on its shoulders. 6 shoulders, 3 pairs right here, right now. So overall, I think, and yet we are talking about smuggling from the ports of India. We are talking about those age-old bootlegging issues. I think,
everyday video that you watch on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly. So
people smuggling gold,
and then
people
we are talking
smuggling
about
money.
Financial frauds. We are talking about white-collar crimes. We are talking about spam calls. I think overall, something needs to really get fixed in this whole machinery, which is moving too fast. But I fear moving too fast in multiple directions. So I think some sort of reining in of the speed at which so many different activities are taking place, whether we are talking about changes to GST, whether we are talking about GST tax evasion, whether we are talking about smuggling. I think the government really needs to look at all these issues very, very seriously now.
I think so. It is There has been an opening of opportunity in the last few years a little too much. When that happens, with so much of opportunity, everybody is on an overdrive to make use of that opportunity. And then you put in laws.
This is abusing the opportunity.
Yeah, then you put in laws to curb their instinct of basically making use of that opportunity. And that is why I think these are teething troubles. I am an optimist. I think they will.
The eternal optimist, Samit Ranjan, always been one.
All right. So hopefully teething problems. But
yeah, so government has given an option, given an opportunity to people. People are trying to overuse that opportunity and therefore
the frauds.
On the other hand,
I don't buy that logic.
Therefore trying to get away.
Therefore trying to evade taxes.
On the other hand, the government has put a few things to curb that the use of that opportunity by way of GST, corporate taxes and all sorts of things. And then I would like to believe customs departments and all these departments are suddenly on an overdrive, which they were not before.
Okay.
So they are doing their job better. That's a good thing.
But this data of 4 years, I don't think, I mean, you know, this data should have come out more regularly, but never mind. At least the data has come out.
I was just about to say.
At least the data has been stated, agreed to, accepted in the parliament. So, yeah, I think
a big number there.
I'll share optimism with it.
Me too, me too. At least we know that there is data and at least the government is coming out clean with the data. Coming and talking about data, another data that is boggling us at this point in time is India's smartphone market. And you would expect that India is making smartphones for perhaps Asian economies. You would expect maybe European economies, but it appears that Indian-made smartphone has a bigger market, and the biggest market is that of the United States.
A third of all smartphones being made by India
are going to
the United States. It has jumped from 92 million last year to 812 million this year. So that is how big the jump is.
So 92 million to
92
800.
million to 810 million. That's almost 10 times.
10
9
times.
Yes.
9 times.
In over a year.
Just a year.
Okay.
The curious thing is, pardon me for using that word, prior to 22-23, the exports of smartphones from India were minuscule. Okay. So data is not even worth mentioning.
Okay.
So it is just in the last 2 years, financial years, that this jump has happened. 157% this year over the last year on all smartphone exports from India. That's how big the market is. US is number 1, followed by UAE, Netherlands, UK, Italy and Czech Republic. I would see countries like Japan and Australia where iPhones are used much more. The premium smartphones, our exports jumping in those countries as well in the coming year.
You know, all these efforts around making smartphones in India, making India a smartphone hub, seem to be coming to some sort of fruition.
No doubt. And look at what Foxconn is doing. I think we'll quickly try and move to that story as well. But I think, you know, all the investments that India has made through PLI, through becoming a very, very clear and present opponent and alternative to China in the world's China Plus One strategy, and picking on sectors which are going to be drivers of growth for the future, whether it is electric vehicles, automobiles, whether it is smartphones, whether it is even semiconductors. Now, I think India has made the right moves, the smart moves, good incentives, and incentives now being utilized by industry, both domestic as well as international, to actually make in India. So what we saw start off as a vision statement, mission statement, tagline called Make in India, Startup India, back in early days of the NDA government, 2014-15, are now actually finally bearing
seeing some
fruit.
light of the day, finally.
So I think it's exactly what we saw with liberalization of 1991.
Right.
It was a tagline, it was end of license Raj, it was a great economic, macroeconomic move. You started seeing fruits of that only 6, 7, 8 years later, right? I think we are seeing the Make in India fruits finally taste fairly sweet now.
Okay, fairly sweet.
To put words to the cliche, the lion full of levers and gears is roaring.
Yeah, totally, absolutely.
And since we're talking about smartphone making capability, let's quickly also talk about Foxconn. Foxconn has plans for India, in Bengaluru specifically. What are those plans?
Foxconn is in a very nice place right now. It's being wooed by 2 governments, Tamil Nadu and Karnataka.
Okay.
Tamil Nadu has inked a $1,600 crore deal, the first since Foxconn broke off with Vedanta, for a plant that will employ 6,000 people in their Kanchipuram district. Before this, Foxconn is ready to invest another 8,800 crore rupees in a plant in Karnataka, in a district, in the Tumakuru district of
in
Tumkur district. Okay, forgive my pronunciation. So yeah, so then Foxconn is in talks with the Tamil Nadu government for another plant for the electric vehicles manufacturing facility that is supposed to be coming up. More than that, they are going to expand their chip manufacturing and assembling units in India. The location for that, Foxconn is still undecided on. So lots on the plate of Foxconn, especially in the states of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu.
Okay,
and remember, Foxconn had fallen apart, and parted ways with Vedanta on the semiconductor chip making, project that they had undertaken to venture on together. And now I think squarely looking at Tamil Nadu as its investment for chip making, and looking at Karnataka for its, ultimate destination for the iPhone factory. And I think these are going to be the latest iPhone 15s, which are likely to get manufactured from the, but I just wonder if iPhone 15 is going to be latest soon, but by the time the factory is up and running and the investment is made, I think 16. We would have moved on to 17 would 16, be my guess.
17.
Right, so, so yeah, I think being wooed by two states, both in South India, both belonging to high investment attractive destinations, I think is definitely good news for Foxconn. Remember, this also comes on the back of Wistron's iPhone Apple factory being bought by Tata Group. So the whole smartphone manufacturing game is heating up in as much measure, as much degree as the semiconductor story
and
is
perhaps
out.
being indigenized as well with Tata's taking over the Wistron facility. And before we move on and close this bulletin, we don't know whether the smartphone market is taking off, but it doesn't appear that there is much heat happening in the aviation sector. Jet and Go First are not taking off anytime soon.
Go First probably is.
Go First
Go
is?
First is.
Okay.
They have...
the operations are cancelled. So we don't, do we have a timeline?
We are waiting for that timeline.
It was extended till the 31st of July.
Which was yesterday.
So we are looking for the next one. But they are making the right moves. They have sought permission from the NCLT that they should be allowed to pay the passengers who had bought tickets for the 3rd of May or after an amount of 597 crores to 15 lakh passengers. Now the
they've got that approval from NCLT.
And NCLT has issued notices to the Committee of Creditors of Go First and the insolvency regulator, that is the IBBI, to file their replies by the 7th of August, when the next hearing will be.
All right. Since we've run out of time, Amit, I also want to quickly understand what's happening with Jet.
Jet wants to has also successfully obtained a renewal offer.
Air operator certificate.
Air operator certificate from the DGCA.
Okay.
So, to that extent, we can expect Jet Airways also to take on the air in the times to come. Maybe not the near times, but the times to come.
Okay, so I stand corrected. Both Jet and Go First are going to come back. We are, of course, hoping for a timeline to be revealed very, very soon. We continue to track all those stories and more. Gentlemen, appreciate you both for taking time out, joining us. Continue to join us every morning. But with that, it's a wrap on this bulletin. Thanks very much for watching.
ChatGPT. It can generate codes and human-like responses through text, write stories, and do a lot more.
I work in a newsroom with anchors, researchers and scriptwriters, graphic artists, producers, video editors, camera crew. But does a newsroom really need them today?
All of us have to think about unique and distinctive value addition that cannot be automated or repeated or replaced by a machine.
ChatGPT may kill many companies.
A human has to be in the loop with an ability to control this.
Dark Side of the Boom. Streaming now.
With all this gear, you must be wondering if I'm climbing a mountain. Well, let me give you a wider look of this place. This is Asia's largest mountain of shame.
A mountain of waste, almost the height of the Qutub Minar.
When you enter capital cities of some of the biggest countries in the world, you don't have 3 garbage mountains waiting to welcome you, depending on whichever side of the city you enter from.
The thing is that a lot of times we talk about landfills only when there's a fire at the landfill. You need to understand that a landfill is at fire almost throughout the year. It's only when the firefighters are not able to douse the fire is when it actually catches the nation's attention, the city's attention, or media attention.
The towering landfills worsen one of Delhi's biggest problems: pollution.
यहाँ पर आप रात को आओ, दिन में आओ, आप 1 घंटे बैठ नहीं सकते बाहर। इतनी धूल, प्रदूषण, महक, आप खाना भी नहीं खा सकते बाहर बैठ के।
Life around the landfill is a curse.
हमारे घर में जो बड़े हैं उन्हें अस्थमा के वो पेशेंट है, आए दिन उनको नेबुलाइजर लगाना पड़ता है।
डॉक्टर ने मुझे ये चीज बोला कि यहाँ का एरिया छोड़ के कहीं और चाहिए।
Delhi's garbage mountains are now a fetid symbol of the national capital's trash problem. The question is, who is to be blamed? Watch Delhi's Garbage Mountains. Streaming on News 9 Plus for the Genflix.
It's stealthy, lethal, and precise. The BrahMos kills warships. It flies 3 times the speed of sound. Once it acquires a target, it can cut through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China has assembled the world's largest navy. Its neighbors are feeling threatened by the dragon's military might. Many of them are turning to BrahMos to enhance their firepower.
The BrahMos supersonic missile can be launched from land, air, sea and underwater. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and most weapon systems cannot intercept it.
The BrahMos has been with the Indian Armed Forces for more than 2 decades, but it has begun to find buyers only now. BrahMos Aerospace has sold it to the Philippines. Indonesia is next with a $200 million plus deal, and the company is now talking to many other potential buyers.
Southeast Asia becomes an automatic market for 2 or 3 reasons. Number one is, of course, India's policy to look east. There is a common reason for looking at Southeast Asia, securing their seas against any hegemony of any of the other countries. Mainly the West Philippine Sea has a lot of problems, so that's why the Philippines has gone into it, and the surrounding countries also will be looking for very similar reasons.
There are strong concerns in ASEAN about aggressive policies of China on different issues, including South China Sea.
BrahMos, stealthy, lethal, precise. It flies at 3 times the speed of sound and cuts through a warship like a hot knife through butter. China's navy has threatened its neighbors, and they are turning to the BrahMos for protection. The warship killer. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
He thought he could outlast us. And 1 year later, the evidence is right here in this room.
Who will blink first?
So far from preventing the expansion of NATO, Russian actions have actually resulted in the expansion of NATO.
It's a mess for Russia and it's a mess for the Western world, for NATO and the United States.
Putin is a dictator, and if he loses, that means the end of his regime, and probably of him personally. So he has to keep going.
Year 2. No end in sight. Streaming now.
इंजीनियरिंग कर रहे हैं क्योंकि सभी लोग कर रहे हैं.
Coaching is now starting from grade 3, 4, 5, 6.
होता जाने वाली बीच राह में आधे टेस्ट देके हैं सिलेक्शन की चाह में.
ऑल इंडिया का बच्चा कोटा जाता है.
This rat race is for rats, not for humans. So why should we even be a part of it?
The Rat Race. This and more streaming on world's first news OTT, News 9 Plus. Download now.
Art of storytelling doesn't go